Today we're going to be talking about different kinds of abrasive belts to use on the belt sander, starting with a silicon carbide belt, the standard of most glass shops, the least expensive belts, and typically the shortest life belts. But this is a new 100 grit belt. I've got a little piece of glass here with a lot of little facets on it, and I'll just pick one facet here to work on so you can see the finish of the belt. It does not take long to be abrasive. This is a 100 grit, so it is quite aggressive. You can get grits from 60 all the way up to 600. Of course, each step being finer. Now I'm going to use an old, broken in, and actually almost worn out 100 grit belt so you can see the difference in the finish. Maybe difficult to see, but this is the new belt, this is the old belt. Much less aggressive. A lot of people like old belts just because of the softer finish that they give. This is an electroplated belt, little dot patterns. This is 70 grit, and I've used this for quite a while. You can see all the markings are off on the back, but there's still a lot of diamond left. Now, just for illustration, I'm going to pick a spot on the edge right there, and I'm going to grind, and you'll see how aggressive a diamond belt can be. Didn't take long and wore off quite a bit of glass. So for the most aggressive and longest lasting belts, diamond is the way to go. This is a 3M belt. It's the electrostatically plated or charged belt. This is the 200 grit, one that I've been using in my shop. It also does not have any directional arrows, but I have put one on just so I know. I want to maintain, with this type of belt, the same direction all the time. It tends to curl up a little bit, but that goes away when it's on the machine. Much smoother. I've gone past all the previous scratches from the new silicon carbide belt. That was the marking from the old silicon carbide belt. It seemed to be a whole lot of difference. But this leaves a very consistent finish for a long time. The silicon carbide belt, like I said, wears out quickly. The next belt I'm going to show is another 3M belt. It's what they call their silicon carbide Trizact. It's not their typical Trizact, which is a little pyramid peaks, but hexagonal. It's thick. The silicon carbide within the little hexagonal sections is, in this case, a 400 grit. Goes on exactly the same way though. I will go from this 200 electrostatic or 675L belt, and you'll see the difference. Much nicer, smoother, softer finish. Very consistent in its finish also. If you'll see anything, you'll see a little bubble in the glass. So that's not a flaw in the belt. This is our smoothing material that we sell for the large horizontal pads. We also make it into a belt system. This goes on, and again, it also is non-directional. This you want to give a little extra time to get wet, to soak up the moisture before you start using it. This is a new one, and it's 325 grit. Now the surface I started with was a 400 grit, so this is stepping backwards to 325. It's also a new belt. It will break in and leave a much smoother, finer finish. I will demonstrate with a broken in belt so you can see what happens between new and being broken in. Okay, this is the same surface. This is the surface from a new 325 grit smoothing belt. And this is an old broken in smoothing belt. So much smoother, softer finish. These belts do like a little bit of break-in time to be totally efficient. All right, the next in the series of belts available. And you need to realize that not everyone is going to enjoy or like every belt. Some people like these. This is the 3M Trizact. Some people don't like them. They do generate a bit more heat when you're working, require a lighter touch. But once you get to know it and like it, you're going to love it. The surface on this belt is thousands, if not more than that, tiny little pyramids of aluminum oxide with the abrasive in it. This is 800 grit, if I haven't mentioned that. So it's going to be extremely fine and pretty to look at. Again, the surface from the old 325 grit smoothing, we should see a difference. There is a bit more friction with this belt. It really wants to drag, which would also generate heat if you don't have sufficient water or a light enough pressure. So you can see that's a much softer and finer finish. This is our Cork belt. Again, kind of a pre-polished belt. Some people like them, some people don't. This is a directional belt. So this is the kind of marking you'll be looking for in any belt that you get from us, just to be aware if it is directional or not. Again, going to the same surface, the surface that was the 800 grit Trizact belt. You'll see the difference between the Cork and Trizact. It does bring up a nice polish. Not an optical polish yet, but a polish. For the final step, at least on the belt sander, if you want to take it up to a very high polish, 3M makes a Cerium Trizact belt. This is not new, it's used. I've been using this in my shop for quite some time now. Okay, this belt has a different kind of joint, has a sine splice joint. It gives this joint a bit more structural strength. The Cerium is on the belt, so you're just adding the water from the belt sander. As you're working, a little cloud of white, looks like skim milk, comes off, and that's the Cerium that comes loose and working. You can see a lot of it has come loose already. I will be going from the surface that came from the Cork belt but that is really quite a nice polish.